Guys, I'm Josy Paul, and I was born during an earthquake, as Larissa mentioned. I got my first job because of it. When I met the creative director of Ogilvy, he shook my hands, felt my tremor, and said, "Oh, you don't have to be nervous of me." And I said, "I'm not nervous. This is creative vibrance." And he laughed and he gave me the job just like that because of what I told him. So hopefully today, when we look at some of the work, I hope you feel some tremor or some vibrance, and that's what we're here to do. We're going to talk about ideas that shape culture, as well as do good things for the brand at the ground level, at the market level. I also wanted to say that I'll present about 3 case studies, and we'll go through it together. Yeah, I'm open to questions in between. I'm okay with any form of interruption. So you don't have to respect me at all. Just if you don't like something, say it. It's all good. Yeah, so I'm going to share the screen. Arva, my partner, is going to share the screen and we're going to go through this. Thank you for joining me. Thank you. I hope this is going to be something that we can remember. I hope so, because the work we do is something that touches a lot of people in India, at least. I hope it touches you. We'll start with what this is all about. And please raise your hand or put comments, anything you like, and we will answer that, yeah? So Arva, if you could just share the screen. So how to shape culture and build effective brands. Yeah, that's really the topic of our sort of conversation and interaction. And before we start, I want to show you something that Can put up. And if you go to the next slide, they talk about iconic work that happened in the last 10 years. And it's for Procter & Gamble, which is a brand marketer of the year, of the decade. And 3 of those 10 pieces are from us in BBDO in India. You'll see one which says, "Why is laundry only a mother's job?" That's right on top on the right. That's Ariel. There's one called Women Against Lazy Stubble, which we did for Gillette. And if we go to the next slide, you'll also notice that there's one called Touch the Pickle, which we did some years ago. So 3 of our pieces represent, according to Can, iconic work. And we're sort of conscious and happy about that. But the point of this presentation is what I'm going to present in the next slide. And really, this is going to be a little bit of work and a little bit of learning and lots of questions, if you have, yeah? So the first point I want to make is that content is king. If you really want to create iconicity for brands, content is king, but context is King Kong. And if one can sense the context, then you are truly somebody who can touch the nerves of the people, touch the pulse of the people. And just to make that point, I want to show you a case study and then talk about what it means to understand the context. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a bit about Dad Share the Load. Share the Load campaign has been on for the last 8 years. It has been recognized as the most effective campaign in the world 2 years in a row. It has been, it has won multiple golds at Cannes and has been recognized in every award show. But it's not so much about the awards as what it has done to the culture and to the social and to society in India. So I want to show you that and share some learning. So if you go to the next slide, I'll show you the case study. Yeah, this is the case study.
Ariel has been leading the conversation on inequality at home in India. This year, a heart-wrenching film about a dad's apology moved the nation.
अब कुछ सही कर जाऊं, तुम्हारा पापा.
Dad Share the Load got India and the world to think deeper about the issue.
On the BBC World Service, an advert comes along that really captures people's imagination. Well, the latest advert to go viral comes from India, and it's called Share the Load. Sheryl Sandberg, of course, famously has promoted it and told people to click on it.
But that wasn't enough. Gender equality at home had to start with a product. So we launched the world's first odd-even pack. Odd days for him to do the laundry and even days for her. And to give these dates greater cultural significance, we partnered with India's most influential cultural calendar, Karl Nirnai, to get Indians to share the laundry work at home. We added one small instruction to the calendar to create a big difference in Indian home. Dad Share the Load had begun a movement for positive change. Influential children's books came forward and re-scripted their comics to include the values of sharing the load at home. Educationists looked at introducing new syllabus, and designers have developed the world's first symbol for gender equality at home, giving the issue its due importance. All this led to a profound impact on brand and society. Ariel sales went up by 76%. Consumer engagement increased 4.6 times the highest ever. Over 2 billion free impressions. Earned media worth over $11 million and counting. 2.1 million Indian men pledged to share the load, and struck a chord with world's most influential agents of change.
So let's look at this from the lens of learning, right? Let's go to the next slide. And you'll notice that I mentioned this before, that content is king, but context is King Kong. If we can sense the context, we can really affect brand and society. So there was this unspoken conflict that nobody was talking about, which was inequality at home. And we're talking about 2015, 2016. Everyone was talking about inequality, but no one was talking about inequality at home. More importantly, no brand, government, or influencer was talking about it. And we were the first guys to come forward and say, hey, there's something there which is hidden, a truth that is hidden, but no one is talking about it. Can we raise that? And if you go to the next slide, we have something called confession sessions. It's the white room, which I'm going to introduce you to a little later. But in that room is where we sort of have our sessions. They are not brainstorming sessions, they are soul storming sessions. And in that session, after we had that intense sort of immersion session about inequality at home, one of the young planners came to us a few days later and said, I found something very powerful, that women in India spend 5 hours a day doing household chores, while the men spend only for 19 minutes. It felt so unfair, and to get this nugget affected the way we looked at our creative work. Because when we went to the client, when the client briefed us, and that is important, when we go to the next slide, I'm going to share this film, but if you go to the next slide after this,
Nana.
go to the slide after this. If you go to the next slide, it's the client's brief was Ariel washes away the toughest stains in just one wash. But our proposition, based on the confession sessions, which we are going to talk about in great detail as we go along, our new way of doing research unhooked and unlocked something very new. And that is when we said Ariel washes away the toughest stains in just one wash, and anyone can do it. And that anyone can do it was what changed the game. Because then we said, if anyone can do it, why is it only a woman's job? So I'm going to play you a film. I'm going to play you a film that really affected India and then went on to be part of 21 countries. Bear with me, it's in Hindi, it's in the local language, but we've got subtitles, and I think it should be clear. So if Arwa, if you go back and just play this film, bear with me.
नाना ये देखो शील्ड लेग हेलमेट
होमवर्क हो गया?
मम्मी ये देखो
फिर दाग लगा दिया। पापा ये लीजिए आपके घर जाने की टिकट। हेलो या आई एम जस्ट गोइंग टू सेंड यू द ईमेल इन 5 मिनट्स। या गिव मी 5 मिनट्स, आई एम वर्किंग ऑन द प्रेजेंट।
मेरी छोटी सी गुड़िया कितनी बड़ी हो गई, घर घर खेलती थी, अब घर संभालती है, ऑफिस संभालती है। आई एम सो प्राउड एंड आई एम सो सॉरी। सॉरी कि ये सब तुम्हें अकेले करना पड़ता है। सॉरी कि जब तुम घर घर खेलती थी तो मैंने तुम्हें रोका नहीं। ये नहीं कहा कि ये सिर्फ तुम्हारा काम नहीं है, तुम्हारे हस्बैंड का भी है। पर कहता भी कैसे है।
और मेरी ग्रीन शर्ट धो देना।
मैंने भी तो कभी तुम्हारी मम्मी की हेल्प नहीं की, और तुमने जो देखा वही सीखा। तुम्हारे हस्बैंड ने भी बचपन में यही देखा होगा। घर घर खेलते वक्त वो टीवी देखने की या न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ने की एक्टिंग करता होगा, और तुम जैसी कोई छोटी सी लड़की चाय बनाने की एक्टिंग करती होगी। उसके डैड की तरफ से सॉरी, तुम्हारे डैड की तरफ से सॉरी, और हर उस डैड की तरफ से सॉरी जिसने कई कई सालों से एक गलत एग्जाम्पल सेट किया। पर अभी भी देर नहीं हुई। इस सॉरी के साथ मैं अपनी तरफ से एक छोटी सी कोशिश करूंगा कि घर के काम में मम्मी की हेल्प करूं। किचन का किंग ना बन पाऊं तो कम से कम लॉन्ड्री में तो हाथ बटाऊं। इतने साल एक गलत एग्जाम्पल सेट किया है, अब कुछ सही कर जाऊं। तुम्हारा पापा।
This provocation really affected the country. The amount of calls we got, the amount of write-ups we got, the amount of people who called us from around the world. I got a call from CNN Worldwide saying, would you like to talk to us? We'd like to give you 10 minutes to talk about this. I was so surprised that mainstream media wanted to talk about this. But yeah, I mean, sometimes emotional provocation like this can really affect a lot of people. People would call me and cry, saying that, what is this? What did you just do to us? I'm with my family and I'm apologizing to them. So it's, you can see the power of what advertising can do. And as we go forward, I mean, to make the point further, yeah, we spoke about this. We spoke about expectations. Yeah, the provocation, I think it's the point of view, right? Is laundry only a woman's job? It was such a simple statement. You don't have to be a copywriter here. What you're trying to be is just somebody who provokes society and says, think again, right? A brand that has a point of view really is greater than a brand that just has a point of differentiation. And to stand by that point of view is what creates conversation. So if you go to the next slide, what makes for iconicity, or what makes for brands that you can shape, is provocations that lead to conversation. So by saying, is laundry a woman's job, with a very powerful film and other sort of provocations, it led to immense conversations. We were getting letters from prime ministers of countries. We couldn't believe that advertising could be that powerful. So, we were humbled by something what we thought we do every day, but something happened over here. And then if we go to the next statement, we realize the power of conversations, because conversation creates sentiment, and that's what creates desirability. And the brand shot through the roof. A brand that was number 5 became number 2 in sales and number 1 in perception. So that's the kind of change it affected and what it did to society and the conversations. If we go forward, so the thing is, in our very early campaign, we revealed the condition, is laundry only a woman's job? And then we went deeper and deeper and deeper. And through our process of sort of emotional archaeology, which I'll talk about, by digging deeper, by greater listening to society, we started questioning conditions and the conditioning. And over the last 8 years, we kept digging deeper and affecting the conversations. One of them was, are we teaching our sons what we've been teaching our daughters? Another one was, how come men share the load with other men, but not with their wives? So every year we had a new provocation that affected the way the world looked at itself and the way men looked at work, and that at household work. And I think that's how we sort of managed to keep the brand alive, the idea alive, and affect change both for the brand and society. Go to the next slide. Even simple things like this, we tied up with so many retailers, and they themselves came forward to change their wash care label. So in the wash care label that you have on your shirt, trouser, wherever, we added one more instruction that it can be washed by both men and women. And things like this, it was so many touch points, so many different areas where we affected this idea, or infected this idea. And the reason is that people are looking for meaning and not brands. And the more meaningful we can make our brands, the more it becomes part of people's lives. Thank you, thank you. And if you go forward, so it's not just about big data. I know big data is important, and we all need that to affect the way we look at media and targeting, but it's also about emotional data, which is the data of the soul, where you go to an area that very few people have gone to. It's not just about ordinary research. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is what we believe in. We believe in confessions, not insights. We go to a place where people say things that feel personal, but actually they are universal. And that's the point we want to make when we show you some of the other work. And that's what happened with the work that I just showed you. Confessions, not insights. And so if we go to the next slide, in the personal is the universal. We may say, hey, this is so anecdotal, but truly when you go to the level of confessions, when you go to the deepest sort of area of our soul, everybody's connected. Everybody's connected. And it doesn't matter if it's one person who said it, because everybody feels it. And that's what some of our work is. And I want to tell you about this campaign called Touch the Pickle. Now, it's so interesting that I, as a man, didn't know about these things that are happening with menstruation in India. And we were called by PNG to be briefed on this new campaign that they wanted. But when we were in the room, I thought I'd challenge the young women who were presenting and talking to us with their brief. And the brief was good, but what was important was the briefing, not the brief. The brief is transactional. It's someone telling you do this, but the briefing is emotional. And what I did was I began to challenge them. I said, why do you show blood as blue? And as I began to provoke the young people in the room, one of the women said, oh, you think that is the problem we have? We have a bigger problem, that there are these things that we are going through that make us, that restrict who we are as women. And then we realize there is so much more that exists in this category that no one's talking about, the hidden truth. And so we did this piece of work, which we want to show you.
In India, nobody talks about periods. It's treated like a bad word, a curse. What's worse, as soon as they hit puberty, girls are introduced to many different don'ts. Don't worship, don't enter the kitchen, and the most ridiculous one, don't touch the pickle. Almost every home stores pickle in a jar that looks like this. And menstruating women are not allowed to touch this jar, as it is believed if impure women touch it, the pickle will rot. Whisper decided it was time to bust these myths, so we launched Whisper Touch the Pickle, giving women a voice to challenge period taboos. We started with a bold film showing a young woman defying tradition and touching the pickle jar. It opened the floodgates of opinion and debates. It became a platform for women to question, ridicule, and bust these period taboos. At a press event, India's leading Bollywood star almost punched the journalist who termed periods as a problem.
Problem? You need to start respecting girls.
This became national news, and even Scoop Whoop spread the word. Stand-up comics picked it up.
Just by touching it. Just imagine the power of an army of menstruating women.
It was even talked about at TED.
We dream of a future where menstruation is not a taboo, not a curse.
Whisper tied up with Aditi Gupta and launched comic books about the subject. In Delhi University, women began writing messages on their pads. A subject that was once hidden was now an open debate. But the most important thing was, Indians were finally speaking about it.
Sanitary napkin not acceptable, is menstruation not acceptable, or are women as whole not acceptable to the society?
Over 2.9 million women pledged to touch the pickle, earn media worth $6.1 million. Whisper's share of voice grew from 21% to 91%. And so did the voice of women.
Yeah, this became a huge sensation in India, and it started a movement that's still going on but it really affected social change. And it's not just about the brand doing amazing or becoming the leader or becoming number one, but it is what it did to the world by in itself. And which is why the year after, when we presented it to Cannes, we didn't even know if it had a chance to win. I wasn't even there at Cannes, and we won the Grand Prix that year. If we just go to the next slide.
In India,
Yeah, you'll see that my partners in America had gone up on stage to pick up the award, and they took a sort of mask of me because I was in Delhi. I never expected this to get an award, but people in the jury felt this was the best way to start the Glass Lion, so it won the inaugural Glass Lion. And for India, it was a huge win. And if you go to the next slide, you'll notice that in a lot of the leading newspapers of the country, we had a lot of publicity around the campaign. And suddenly, we became famous and our work became important. And that's why I suppose I'm here speaking with you. If we go forward. Now, I spoke to you about confessions and I spoke to you about emotional data. So I want to welcome you to the White Room, and I'm going to show you where we do these things. If you go to the room, if you go to the slide, this is a biggish room. People sit on the floor, everything is white, and there's a red candle in the center. And when you sit in this room, especially if you're sitting around 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the evening, and the way the light changes across the window, something happens to you. You begin to share without feeling any fear. And everybody shares, and each person shares, and the other person builds on that sharing. And that's why I say confessions, because let me give you an example. We were working for eBay. eBay came to us to talk about, can you find us a purpose? And we said, eBay, e-commerce, who are we to find your purpose? We're just advertising guys. And they said, no, we love your work. We believe you can find something. But we were not so confident that we would find it. But we were in the White Room and we spoke about why we buy things. I said, everybody just sit for 29 minutes. We'll talk about why we buy things. As we were speaking, everyone began to try and look cool about why they buy things. They spoke about brands. But what happened is, as the sort of session progressed, and by the way, it didn't end at 29 minutes. It went on for 2.5 hours. And somewhere after 1.5 hours, one of the girls said, I'll tell you why I buy things. I buy things to prove something to my grandmother. Because when I was born, my grandmother was very upset because I was born a girl. She wanted a boy. So she was always a bit different towards me. And I buy things to prove to her that I'm better than any guy. It was a very emotional session. There was a breakdown. People began to cry. And as people realized each other's vulnerability, people began to say things. And I said, should we stop the session? Because this is not what we had in mind. We believe in soul storming, but this was really deep. And everyone said, no, we're feeling good. We want to share. And from that came so many beautiful confessions, which led to so many possibilities that the world could possibly gain from. And one of them is what we went with. And it was called eBay, Things Don't Judge. Things Don't Judge. eBay has 100 million things that don't judge. Yeah, the skipping rope doesn't judge if you're 76 years old. A ring does not judge if you're straight or gay or whatever. A Diwali lamp does not judge your religion. And this went on. We had a whole series of such ads which said eBay has 100 million things that don't judge. Things don't judge. And we didn't manufacture this, right? We got this because the White Room allowed us to share. And through these confessions came these amazing sort of, gems, nuggets, things that were not said. And we converted them as useful assets where everyone can benefit. So if you go to the next slide, we say that the nature of creativity is changing. I call it emotional archaeology. I always wanted to be an archaeologist when I was in school, but I never could be one. But I realized that there's another way to dig deeper. There's another way to find something that already exists. That's layers and layers of other things and conditioning have come in the way. If we can unpeel the conditioning and if we can go a little inside to who we are as human beings, we can find something beautiful. And that's why I call it emotional archaeology. So how do we mine for these things? We mine it by creating a safe space. The White Room is one example of that. The ability to build trust, deep listening, one-on-one listening, one-on-many listening, but everyone is in it. But the most important thing is vulnerability. I find that in research, in normal research, there's always somebody who's in authority, who's asking questions, who's feeling like he or she is one level above. But if we can all be equal, or if one person can be truly vulnerable, then everybody comes forward to sort of say things they have not said before. And it's just a way of allowing us to, find meaning in our lives and also healing. And so that's a beautiful process. It's so rewarding. It's so rewarding because it's not about, it's really about affecting ourselves as human beings and about society. In the process, brands benefit. Yeah. So if we go forward, this is another case study that I want to present because this has really happened one-on-one with the marketing chief of PepsiCo. They have this brand called Mirinda, and how through a pure listening session, I was able to understand something that was deeper. And then that led to us doing a campaign that PepsiCo had never done ever in the history of PepsiCo, which allowed them to sort of really stand for something. It's called Release the Pressure, and let me show you the case study.
Parental pressure is one of the leading causes of depression and suicidal tendencies among teens in India. Every hour, a young life is lost because of this.
Parents put so much pressure on the kids about marks that it almost ends up bottling up and makes the child not communicate so much with the parent.
However, in February 2017, a month before the annual exams, when pressure on the students is at its peak, Mirinda, a playful PepsiCo beverage, stepped forward to give students a voice. The brand launched Release the Pressure, a nationwide campaign to bring the issue out in the open. It all started with Mirinda urging students to write open letters to their parents. As the letters poured in, the brand released a hard-hitting digital film.
Dear Amma and Appa, you know I am very shy and it has taken a lot of courage to write this letter, so please listen to me.
It triggered a nationwide debate, an outpouring of empathy. The brand then did the unthinkable. It turned its 11 million bottles into media. Authentic open letters appeared on all Mirinda bottles. Mirinda then underlined its commitment with an action, the bottle cap. The cap became an iconic symbol of the movement and an instrument of social activism and change. Then, on the opening day of India's biggest exams, 2.75 million stickers were released in the newspapers for parents to show their resolve. Psychologists joined the campaign to offer free advice online to parents and students. India connected with a message. Consumer engagement went up 1,100%. Over 193 media articles were covered, and the film was viewed 35 million times in just 1 month. 1.57 million parents pledged to release the pressure, making Mirinda the most loved brand for teens, an unlikely agent of change for millions of teenagers.
Yeah, so this is the third example that I want to share with you. And the truth is, if you go to the next slide, is that creativity is the return gift of empathy, right? I mean, if you can truly listen, if you can truly feel what the other person's going through, then something is given to you. It's like a gift. right? If you look at all the words, I mean, we've not shared the film, but if you look at that film, you'll break down, because this film really impacted students. And we didn't write a single word of that film. Everything was written by the students who came and gave these letters to us. And all we did was we pieced it together. We were the DJs. We just sort of, curated it. And that's all we did. We didn't manufacture it. So that's what it is. It's like, hey, man, am I creative? I don't know. Maybe I'm not. So what does it take? Let's look at some elements of what, and again, like I said, this is a personal point of view. You don't have to believe in it. It's just a sharing. And if there's something that connects with you, great. The most important thing is that it takes an environment. It's what your company believes in or what a few of you believe in. So that collective energy is important, whether with the people who create it or the people who create it together, clients, the world. There's got to be an element of play, right? Because if there's no element of play, you're not going to find something new. Play is discovery and discovery is play. And the fact that you're constantly seeking, you've got to be a seeker, otherwise you're not going to find it. An open process, which is something I spoke about, which is deep listening, exchange of stories, lived experiences, social context. We have something called a workout. So these are just, it's not conventional research. It's not formal. It's all informal. Like if you were writing a book, you'd do the same thing. We're not doing anything new, but we do it differently. It still takes two to create. No one person can make all these things happen. Either you and the client, or it's you and someone else, your partner, whoever. You can't do this alone, right? And it comes from not knowing. So the starting point is, I don't know. If you start with, I know, then we've already stopped the process. So to come from vulnerability and to come from not knowing is to find something new. And that for us is important. Whatever your age, young or old, if I say, I don't know, at least my mind's now open. And the freedom to fail is something that's a gift that's been given to me in my early days by my creative director who hired me, who couldn't give me the money that I asked for, but said, I give you a gift greater than money. He said, I give you the freedom to fail. This is just another example of Share the Load. I just want to take you through this because it shows how we keep listening and we understand the change in tone in society. What I showed you about the father's apology was 7 years ago, but the world has changed. Women have a point of view that's getting stronger and stronger. And how can we reflect where society is today? How can we affect how can we borrow from the context and help our brands and therefore help where the world is? And that's what we want to show you through this case study.
It's not that men can't do this job. Clearly they can. I mean, you don't need to be a scientist, rocket scientist to load the laundry.
A World Economic Forum report says gender equality is 135 years away, which means no woman alive will see gender parity in her lifetime. To accelerate the pace of change, Ariel, India's leading detergent brand, took a more defiant stand this year. In a country where women are conditioned to never challenge their husbands, the wife confronts her husband and asks why men like him can share the load with other men but not with their wives. Is it because you never saw us as equals?
Do you ever see me as your equal?
See Equal Share the Load was a bold new tone for the country, and it created instant news.
I saw this video and I'll be honest, it made me a bit uncomfortable because, it hits a little too close to home.
The film was viewed over 115 million times across platforms. It triggered millions of uncomfortable conversations and was covered in over 1,900 publications across 40 countries. To further catalyze the movement, Ariel made a confession on the front page of leading dailies. The brand acknowledged that ever since advertising began, housework has been portrayed as a woman's job. In a way, we're all responsible for the inequality we see at home. The open letter urged all content creators, media partners, and advertisers to help change the imagery. Partners joined in, so did the action. and Ariel turned its packs into a silent protest. For the first time, Ariel changed the names on its packs, with names of hundreds of Indian men.
Now I can hold this pack and tell my husband Ritesh, share the load.
The impact, 4 billion earned impressions, 43% increase in emotional equities. Sales grew by 29%. When we began in 2015, 79% men believe that laundry is a woman's job. That number is down to 26% today.
Yeah, so really that's what you could say is the title, right? I mean, how you can sort of shape or affect society or culture and yet do good things for your brand. So that's really what this is about. And if there was, the next slide really shows you
It's not that
how you even put your, names of 100 Indian men on the back and stuff like that. So there's a lot of this long tail of action that we do to touch men and women across the country. But the important thing that I would leave you with is these 2 points. One is what we always believed in from the day we started the agency, which is create acts, not ads. And there's always an action that we promote when we do something. It's not just an action of go and buy my product, but something that allows you to engage with the brand and engage with society. And the last point, which is creativity is sensitivity in a world when no one is listening. So that's what I have. Any questions, friends? We can stop sharing. Anybody, any questions? We sort of did this in 40 minutes so that if there's anything we could,
Questions,
help and
comments. I just think that all of this was like really impactful. Like it opened up all of my emotions, and I definitely connected with everything you were saying.
Thank you, Arisa. I mean, any comments, anything that you feel we can do better, or any observations about the world? We don't have to, anything is fine. Like I said, just think of this space as your white room. It's your space so you can confess. Anybody, anyone? I do thank you for your comments. That was most helpful.
Oh,
Yeah. Hi, Josy. I've got a question. My name is Isabel, but it's not a question, it's more a comment. No? I love how the ideas are super powerful, but they don't stay in just a video or a film. They go farther. Like in all the ideas you share, you always do something else. Like I love the calendar beats on the Ariel one, or the fact that you use like the tab as the icon of the campaign. So I guess it's just like making the campaign as big as possible all the time. And I guess the question is like, how do you do that, or how do you push for that? Because sometimes it's very tricky.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's really about relationships, right? It's about ideas and relationships. There's a huge element of trust actually in this, because the clients knows that you're committed to this idea and you're committed to the brand, and when we have our sessions, there is a huge respect for each other, for everyone in the team. Of course, PNG will test everything and check everything, but it's really you got to throw almost 100 ideas before you can get 4 ideas approved. So yeah, it is a volume game. And because one has seen the success of it, it's something that makes you want to do more and more of. And more importantly, I must tell you, which is like a secret, Isabel, is that people come to us, the world comes to us saying, I have an idea I want to share with you. Or that brands come forward or partners come forward. So sometimes you don't have to do it yourself. People come because they love the idea and the brand so much that they want to engage with in their own way. And that is a great place to be, right? And that's what we're noticing, that people come, they call you, hey, Josy, I have an idea I want to share with you. So I think it's collective participation. Like you don't know who owns the idea anymore. It's organic.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Josy, hi, I'm Fran. I wanted to know, I feel like every single creative, and every single creative agency can have one great idea, but having consistently good ideas throughout time is what really differentiates the good from the great. I wanted to ask you, what are the measures, the tools, the tactics, the processes you have implemented within your team so that you can set them up for success to keep producing these great industry-changing ideas?
That's a great question, friend. Honestly, I don't know if we have a process, man. It's just, I think it's chemistry. I feel the only way you can truly break through is people energy. And we are crazy about the human beings we work with, because if we can, each of us are a network, each of us have many more people who are connected to us. And if we can get everybody's energy into the room, we don't need anything more. That is the world. It's a microcosm. It allows us to receive. So I keep telling people, be an antenna, just go and feel and receive, and so that is the only way. Of course, there are processes that the client has, but I think our best ideas have not come from any measurable process, unfortunately. For example, just recently when we did our recent share the load work, I suddenly realized that there's a whole set of influencers that nobody's ever spoken to. And who are those influencers? They are the people who work in people's homes, the house helps. The house helps see everything that's going on in people's homes. They've never had a chance to speak. So we got 100 house helps to come together. And I tell you, we spent a day with them. It was just cathartic what they shared with us. Now, where does that come from? Who thinks about house helps as a source of inspiration? They realize they have a voice and they voiced it. And in the process, they realized what's happening in their own homes and they would cry. It was like really deep, man. We call it creative therapy, actually. We find our creative process actually not just helping the world, it helps us. What we try to change changes us, Fran. So I don't know a singular process. It's a collective people energy that we try to rob. We're thieves. We steal energy.
That's great, Josy. Thanks.
No, I know I didn't answer it fully, Fran, but just I don't have all the answers, but it's something like that.
No, and I get it. Like, usually I feel it's very rare that someone has like one specific thing they can answer to a question like that, but rather it's more of the people, the chemistry and whatnot.
I think Sacheta had a question.
I feel like this is a struggle I typically have, and I've seen people in my office have too, is that you have a really good idea, you have a really good insight, something as powerful as the one you presented for Ariel, but how do you get the clients to see the power behind that? Because oftentimes I think there's a sense of fear, and it's very hard to convert that fear into conviction and get them there.
That's probably the biggest question, right? Because sometimes even if you have a great relationship and you have all the evidence to prove that the idea is right or what you found is right, people still won't buy it. And then I don't know, like I mean, it's not fair for me to take any clients' names, but it's like it's just your force. In the end, it's the force, your force. What are you going to say in a meeting? How much are you willing to lose? How can you look embarrassed in front of 30 people to cry and say, no, this is it. I'm telling you, this is it. And then you're going and checking with other people and you're taking people's reactions when you show the work. Or sometimes it takes a lot to get that. It's like you're really throwing yourself emotionally and draining your energy to make it happen. And you say, is it worth it? And I feel, yes, it is worth it. When I started out in advertising, Sucheta, I did something that I don't think I'll ever do. My very first piece of work was for Philips Car Stereo. And when I went and presented the work, the entire room said no to it. So I rushed to the window and I threatened to jump. Because it was my first job and there was no way I could, if somebody didn't approve my first piece of work. And everyone got scared and the marketing director told everyone to leave the room. And then she sort of, told me that, he told me that you got to trust me, you got to come out of the window and you got to believe that I'm going to go through the work again, give me a chance. I liked his voice. I was 21 years old. I felt there was trust in his voice. So I stepped off the window and I went back to the office. My creative chief was waiting at the lift elevator. He held me by my ear. He took me around the office like a punishment. He said, I got a call from the client. They've approved your work, but they don't want to see you again. So I was drastic in my early days. And I truly believe that sometimes you got to be a warrior to get people to understand. But now I find I do it slightly differently. Because one of the things I do, Sucheta, is that when we're having the process, I seed in the thought in a very sort of in a stealth, in like stealth, It's not, I don't go and say, hey, I have a big idea. You put things into the conversations that people can pick. And then after a point, somebody says, oh, I have this thought. And you say, hey, that's a good thought. And then you go back with the same thought. And everyone says, hey, I like that. But it's because that's what they said. If you know what I mean. It's like touch the pickle, right? The girls and the women in PNG were telling me stuff. I didn't know about it as a man. And then I go back and I say, hey, what can we do this? And they say, that's a good idea. The truth is, it was not my idea. They had told me during the briefing when I provoked them. So there's already a half buy-in in the process. So I don't think one should be going and saying, hey, surprise, I've got you something magical. It's more like, can you build it into the process so that it feels seamless, Then there's no decision-making. It's all, everyone's on the same side. Decision-making is scared because then you're putting the pressure on someone else. Maybe. Yeah.
No, I think that answers the question. I think I'm going to try the stealth method. It sounds probably the best way to get them on board.
Thank you.
There is one more question I see in the chat box from Chevy. Okay, well, Chevy says, touch the pickle is challenging a taboo, which some people still strongly believe in. How did selling to your client by convincing it won't lead to bad PR? Because most of the time when we want to challenge a taboo, we get stopped by the client's worry.
Yeah, that's again an important question because it's all about the time, right? So when we say you got to be an antenna and when we say that you got to understand the context, you also have to understand the environment. So in 2015, when we did this, the world was different from, say, 2023. So at that time, we felt it was the right time to do it. There was also some sort of research or testing that was done during that time by PNG. And it was felt that because we were creating a platform and not creating a recommendation, it wasn't about PNG saying something. It was a platform that allowed people to discuss and debate. And so in a way, we sort of balanced it very, very carefully. And because Touch the Pickle was something that felt light and something that we felt people could discuss, we started with that. And so it sort of allowed everyone else to get in. And that's how we sort of treaded carefully. But would we do that today? I don't know. But this was 2014, 2015, so we sense the time. So it's about being highly aware of the moment, highly aware of the mood. It's really, and I always say that you can tell time by looking at our work because our work tells you what the mood is of that year.
That's a very good point. That timing plays a lot into the strategy, the angle, and how to go about something.
So I hope it helps answer some part of the question.